Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. We're going to swing back to Jes Staley again today because Edward Bramson is on the warpath. And Sherborne Invest Group, who has a big stake in Barclays, is totally on the offensive right now, just like I said they were going to be. Bramson has had enough, and he wants Staley out, and there's zero chance that Staley's going to be around till 2021, folks. I know that was the original report, but I said then that 6 to 8 months tops, and I've revised that even, and I think it's going to be shorter than that. I'd say anywhere from 4 to 6 months tops at this point. Staley he's under serious pressure and serious fire. And there's also rumors on the street that other members of the board, even though they've publicly come out and said they support Staley, are having second thoughts. And that is just going to bring the inevitable a lot quicker. So today we have an article from Bloomberg. The headline is Barclays activist opposes nomination of CEO Staley to board over Epstein ties. And this article was written by Stefania Spazzotti, and this article was written today. Barclays PLC top shareholder called for the removal of Jes Staley from the board, deepening the criticism around the chief executive officer's ties with deceased financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And remember, people will want to talk about how it was the performance of Barclays or anything else besides the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, where we all know, since we've been following this case and we've seen how all of these oligarchs, these business oligarchs that surrounded Epstein, have all been toppled. Well, it's obvious to anyone who is paying attention that the same is being done to Staley here. And it's not going to be long, folks. It is not going to be long before Bramson really puts the screws to this guy. Edward Bramson, Sherborne Investors Management, LP, said in a letter on Monday it strongly recommends the board rescind their unanimous recommendation to re-elect Staley as a director at its annual meeting in May. Again, that's what I was just referring to as well. Now, they've publicly come out and the board has supported Staley. And a lot of that has to do with keeping the stocks on an even footing. They don't want to see it as disruption. They want to see it, the board wants people to see it as a natural change if Staley's going to leave. Not that he's been forced out or that there's been a hostile player and an activist investor like Bramson who has forced their hand. They want everything to seem smooth so that the stock prices don't take a hit. Again, that's what it's all about for these folks. It's all about making sure the profitability of the stock stays strong. The public interest not only requires the likes of Barclays to set the highest standards, but it also dictates that there should be unvarnished transparency on major ethical questions and on the suitability of individuals that lead them, Sherborne Investors wrote in the letter. And he's not wrong about this. If you're the boss of anything, you should be on the up and up. You should be somebody that the company can send out there as the face of the company, and you can, go out there and plead the case or try and get more investors or, assuage the feelings of the investors who are already there as part of the stockholders. That should be your job. It shouldn't be every other week an article coming out just blasting you because of your relationship with Epstein. And not only your relationship with Epstein, it's not like you guys were just pals for a day or two. He was getting loans from you for the better part of a decade. And not only that, you were hanging out with him on his boat. You were friendly with him. He was friendly with you and your family. You were at the island. So it's not like you have any leg to stand on here, Mr. Staley. You brought this upon yourself, just like the rest of the so-called elites who thought it was going to be fun to pal around with Epstein even after he was convicted the first time. And now, well, they're seeing the results. They're all being toppled. They're all being pushed back from normal life. And Staley's the next one to go. I've told you folks that for weeks now. And, the more we see these sort of articles, especially with Abramson coming out and saying the things that he's saying, and, from what I know of Abramson, he is not the kind of guy that's, just going to speak empty platitudes. This is a man of action. This is a man that's going to force Barclays' hand if they don't do the right thing. Barclays declined to comment. The bank disclosed in February that British regulators are probing how former J.P. Morgan and Chase and Company banker Staley characterized his relationship with Epstein, who died in his prison cell last year. Sherborne's latest request comes a week after it called on Chairman Nigel Higgins to end the British lender's cycle of disruption. And Higgins has just been sitting on his hands, and from all I've heard, Higgins is a very nice man and all, but he needs to step up and be the CEO and lance out this boil here that's Jes Staley, because especially with the way the markets are turning because of the coronavirus situation and how the economies in parts of the world are at a standstill right now. Barclays can't take any sort of, they can't have bad press on top of all of that. They're already in crisis mode. The lending institutions in the country are in crisis mode, and in the world are in crisis mode, considering the way the stock market has reacted to the coronavirus. So you add all of that up, and you have the perfect storm for a place like Barclays to get on with the getting on and get rid of Staley. And funny about Barclays, little story real quick. While I was flying home from Santa Fe, I was flying on American Airlines, and I guess they've partnered with, guess who? Barclays for their credit card. So I had a nice little laugh when they came around and they tried to hand me a application for a Barclays credit card. I was just saying to myself, yeah, zero chance that ever occurs. I mean, especially with Jes Staley as the head of the group. If Staley was gone, maybe I would have accepted it, but I try my best not to give my money to anybody who was involved with Jeffrey Epstein. We all have to do what we want to do with our money and spend it how we want. But me personally, I'm certainly not buying any products by Les Wexner or any of these other knuckleheads that were running around with Epstein, that's for sure. Terrible precedent. The criticism adds to growing questions over the future of Staley, who the board has said they fully support. The CEO could leave the lender as soon as next year, people with knowledge of the plan have said. Again, I've heard that plan is going to be accelerated, and I heard that Staley is really, really against the ropes here. I mean, he's not even throwing back at this point. The referee is going to have to step in for the TKO loss if he doesn't start, making some waves, because the board publicly says that they support him. Well, I've heard differently. And the sources that I have on Wall Street said that the board is in panic mode, especially after the destruction of the last few stock cycles due to the coronavirus. So when banks get into panic mode, heads start to roll. And we know that Staley is already on the chopping block, folks. So I would not be surprised. Like I said, originally I said 8 months. I would not be surprised 4 to 6 at this point. Sherborne, which said Monday it's now Barclays' largest shareholder, said any succession planning that allowed Staley to retire next year would be a mistake and would set a terrible precedent for Barclays and for the United Kingdom public companies in general. They're saying the same thing I'm saying, just not in the exact words. Staley is bad for business. The way Wexner was bad for business. The way Dubin had to step down. These guys are bad for business now. They're toxic. And where they used to be these big power players and the type of players that can move things on the financial stage, those days are gone. Investors don't want to invest with these people. Let's be honest. A group like Sherborne is all about the fazools. They want to make money. They're an investment firm. Their whole job is to make money for those that are investing in them. Okay? So when Staley is impeding that process, Staley has to go. And that's what you see right here. That's what you see with the whole entire situation that we have going on at Barclays. We have Bramson, who has just had enough. Bramson and Sherborne are not going to sit by and let their investment get destroyed, especially when they have the most shares in the company now. Epstein regularly brought Staley business when he ran J.P. Morgan's private bank, and the two were close professionally. Bloomberg News has reported. Again, we've talked about this as well. What does that mean, Epstein regularly brought Staley business? Now, he just out of the goodness of his heart, Or were him and Staley, sharing a couple of percentage points on each transaction that they didn't report, and then they sent it off to Jeffrey Epstein's hidey holes? I don't have evidence of that, but you're going to tell me that Epstein, this man who everything was about a nickel and a dime, is going to do this out of the kindness of his heart with getting nothing on the flip side? Highly doubt that occurred, folks. I highly doubt that occurred, and I believe that Staley and any of these other bankers that were providing funds to Jeffrey Epstein during his criminal organization and his ongoing criminal conspiracy, I think that all of them should be subpoenaed as well so that we could hear what they have to say and we can get them on record, because we know that there was a ton of money laundering going on. Staley also visited Epstein in Florida when he was serving his sentence following a 2008 guilty plea of soliciting prostitution in one case with a minor, the New York Times reported last summer. Think about that, folks. The head honcho of Barclays, in charge of countless amounts of money, countless amounts of transactions, was going to visit Jeffrey Epstein after the guilty plea. This is the man that you want in charge of your money? This is the man, as an investor, that you'd be comfortable with having at the helm? Hell no, not me, and neither is Bramson, and the Sherborne group certainly isn't going to sit by and let it happen. It's just like the Sycamore partners with Wexner. These activist investors, for good or for ill, are all about that dough. And sometimes it'll make you sick the way they go about their business. There's no doubt about that. But in situations like this, I got to give them a high five. Like, I'd like to see Bramson and just give him a high five or buy him a drink for, at the very least, disrupting Staley's day-to-day life. Because Staley was definitely involved with Epstein to the neck. And the providing financial support and enabling Jeffrey Epstein's behavior through that route is just as bad, in my opinion, as the other enablers. If Staley knowingly continued providing financial services to Epstein, which could have helped to facilitate the latter's child prostitution activities — again, child prostitution does not exist. A child cannot be a prostitute — in order to reap personal career benefits, it raises the question as to whether he is suitable to be an executive of a financial institution, according to Sherborne. Yeah, they're saying the same thing I just said. He continued providing financial services to Epstein, which have helped to facilitate the latter's activities. And that's what happens with these big bankers, and especially in the private banking section, the personal banking section where they only deal with clients who have millions of dollars. Boy, oh boy, there should be a serious audit of that department and a forensic accounting of anybody who was dealing with Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts. This will be the second year that Sherborne has called for change at the Barclays investor meeting. Bramson lost his bid for a board seat last year, while Staley plowed ahead with his plans to expand the investment banking business. We believe that it would be in everyone's interest to draw a line under this destabilizing situation, which has become a circus, as soon as possible, Sherborne's letters said. Yeah, look, there's no doubt about it. There is zero doubt about it that Sherborne is not pleased with what's going on, and they're going to use this coronavirus situation as a predicate to get rid of him sooner. Watch. Do not doubt me on this. I know what they're going to do, and I know how these people function. I know how these people think. And at the end of the day, it's all about the money, and they have to consolidate their losses at this point because the banking system's taking a huge hit during this coronavirus. All sectors are taking a huge hit, and what better time to use that as, the cover story to get rid of Staley and try and bury the bad press from Epstein. We know that they're not above stuff like that. We know how corporations are. They're just like the royal family. It's all about saving face. It's not about providing, justice to survivors or providing, justice to the people. It's about saving face and making sure that their vehicle for them to continue to amass wealth does not get stalled out. And at the end of the day, even if that's what it is, so what at this point? As long as Staley is gone and he is no longer in the position that he's in right now, and he has to face reality the same way that Dubin did, the same way that Wexner did, that's fine with me. but I'd like to see the process accelerated, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a couple of months and not 4 to 6 months or 8 months. But there is no way that Staley lives, as far as his job goes, lives in that position until 2021. Zero chance of that happening. All right, everybody. Like I said, I'll be back later on today, and we'll do the first segment of the Santa Fe trip, and then I'll be back with the usual daily drop. All right, everybody. Enjoy your day, and I will talk to you then. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you'd like to help support the podcast, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box.